Uh, how is the screen now? Is it clear and visible?
Yes, sir. It's
Yes,
clear.
sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir, it's clear. Yeah.
Perfect.
It's
Thank
clear.
you. Great. Okay. So we were discussing this particular point of salaries. Now the format is something like this, that we first find out the basic salary, which is nothing but the payment that you get for meeting your basic duties of employment. Now over a period, the employers have started adding more elements to the salary. Like now, besides your amount of salary, they have added allowances. Now, what is allowances? Allowances means a fixed sum of money which the employer pays to you, for meeting some expenses. So let us say for meeting your rent expenses, the employer pays you HRA, house rent allowance. For meeting the expenses of commuting between your house and the office, the employer pays you conveyance allowance. So these are the different types of allowances. So allowances is what? It is a fixed sum of money which you receive over and above your basic salary portion. And this amount is received by you for meeting a particular expenditure. Then the another portion is the retirement benefits like gratuity, pension, leave, travel, concession, etc. This is again what you receive generally at the end of your employment. Next, during the period of employment, the employer contributes some portion to different welfare funds. Like there are provident funds, there are superannuation funds. Under different laws, the employer is required to contribute a fixed sum of money every month to various funds, and even you are required to contribute same. Now the taxability of this will also be covered under this salary. Then perquisites are those facilities, amenities, benefits which the employer provides you. Generally it is in the form of facilities or benefits, and it is over and above your monetary salary. And then a new concept is coined, that is profit in lieu of salary. What is profit in lieu of? In lieu of means instead of. So instead of paying you regular salary, the employer may decide to give you a share in his profit or decide to give you a lump sum benefit. Such benefits are called as profits in lieu of, instead of salary. Now, terminologies are not important. The only one golden rule that is important to decide the taxability is that if you are receiving it under employer-employee relationship by whatever name called, whether it is called as allowance, perquisite, etc., it makes no difference. It would be taxed under the head salaries. So remember this key point. To identify whether or not it is covered under the head salary, you have to see what is your relationship with the person. If you are standing in relation as an employee, then whatever you receive is salary. If you are standing in principal to principal relation, principal to agent relation, then it won't be salary. It would be under some other head, generally business head. Now, this will become the gross salary, and this is what is the definition of salary also under section 17(1). Now from this you are allowed deductions. Again, here you have a fixed deduction which is called as standard deduction, which is applicable. At present it is 50,000 for the whole year. Then you have a deduction called as entertainment allowance deduction. This amount is firstly included in your salary under this particular category of allowance, because this is what the employer has paid you for meeting certain expenses. So firstly, it is part of your allowances. And then secondly, it is also allowed as deduction over here, but with one most important condition, that you should be a government employee. So only if you are a government employee, then whatever entertainment allowance you are receiving, you get deduction of least of these amounts. But if you are not a government employee, then simply the allowance is included in salary, but there is no deduction over here. Now for government employees, the deduction is lower of, least of 5,000 or 20% of your basic salary, that is this amount, or the amount of leave, or the amount of entertainment allowance received. So either 5,000, 20% of basic or the amount of allowance received, least of these three becomes the deduction. Practically, what I have seen in different cases of the clients, it is generally 5,000 because it is the least out of all the three figures. And then lastly, the third deduction that you get is of profession tax. Now, it may appear or it may sound that profession tax means the tax which is levied to professionals, or it is only levied on those persons who are engaged in a profession. That is not the case. It is levied on all businesses, professions, and even jobs income. So if you are earning income either from your business or profession or by doing an employment, this is applicable to you. Now we are talking about salary. Now, firstly, it is a state tax. So it is not the case that everywhere you will be required to pay profession tax. Maybe in some states it is there, in some states it may not be there. So maybe if in your state this particular profession tax is not applicable, then maybe you are not paying any profession tax, then you won't get any deduction. But if you are paying profession tax in your state because it is applicable and you fit in the requirements of that particular law, then only you will be required to pay that particular tax. Now, the most important point about the deduction is that you are allowed this deduction only if the amount is actually paid. If you remember, this is very similar to municipal tax paid in case of house property income. So similar to that, here also you are allowed deduction only if the amount of profession tax is actually paid by you. Now here there is an interesting point. The interesting point is many times the employer gives you facility that, okay, I will pay off your light bills. I will pay off your telephone bills. I will pay off your profession tax. Now, if employer is paying off your profession tax out of his pocket, what is the tax treatment in your hands? Firstly, it will be included in your salary. Why it will be included in your salary? Because it is one of the benefits, perquisites, which the employer is providing you. What is the benefit the employer is providing you? The employer is meeting your expenses. He is paying off your expenses. So it is a benefit that you are getting. So firstly, since the employer is meeting your personal expenses, it is a perquisite or it is a salary benefit to you. So firstly, it is included in gross salary. And then since it is actually paid, it is also deducted. So the net effect is zero. Now, if you logically also look at this point, the net effect zero is correct because nothing has gone from your pocket. Neither has anything come to your pocket. The employer has directly paid off one of your liabilities. But the treatment is we first assume that you have received that amount from employer. So it comes to your pocket. So it is included in gross salary. And on the second side, we look it at like this, that now you are paying it off as one of your liabilities discharged. So it is also allowed to you as deduction. Effectively, net effect is zero because nothing, no impact has happened to your pockets. But in the presentation, it is first included and then it is deducted. So this is an important point about profession tax treatment. If you are paying the profession tax out of your pocket, then simply you will be deducting it over here. That's it. But if the employer has paid on your behalf, then first you will include it in your salary under the name perquisite and then again you will deduct it. Now again, similar to the concept of municipal tax, here also, if let us say this amount remains outstanding and it is not paid during the year, you won't be getting any deduction. So this is broadly the format of salary head. And now we are going to discuss all these things in detail. Basically what? If you observe here, I have written taxable portion, taxable portion, taxable portion, taxable portion. Why so? Because whatever allowances, retirement benefits you are receiving, they may not be taxable in toto. So if you are receiving 100, there are different exemptions applicable to them. And maybe out of 100, the exemption is 60 and you are only liable to pay tax on 40. So obviously here, I won't be covering entire 100. I would be only covering the 40 rupees, which is the taxable portion. So the basic point is, since you are computing income, you have to only cover that much portion which is taxable, that is after adjusting the exemption. So basically in this chapter, we are going to discuss what are the exemptions for all these amounts. So whatever amount you are receiving from the employer minus the relevant exemption, balance will be covered in your salary income. Anybody having any question relating to the format, you may please raise your doubts. Yes.
Sir,
Anybody has any question?
in
Yeah.
16.2, uh, these benefits is only for government or
Yes.
C only for government?
Sorry, this benefit is?
There is A, B, and C.
Correct.
Right? So,
Sir, sir, the entire benefit means the benefit for deduction of entertainment allowances for government employees. And how much is this deduction? It is the lower of ABC. So this, I understood your doubt. This point, even though I've written at the end, it is not pertaining only to C. It is pertaining to this whole category of entertainment allowance.
okay. Yeah, that means 16.2 is only for government employee only.
Exactly. 16.1A and 16.3 is applicable to all. 16.2 is only for government employees.
Government employees. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Perfect. Yes. Any other questions? Anybody having any other question relating to this? No?
No, sir. Thanks.
Great. Now, some important points. Conceptually, there is no difference between salary and wages. Means even though the head is named as salary, if you're receiving what is called as wages, that will also be covered, because I have given you one rule: employer-employee relationship. The terminology is not important. Second, the word salary, which is defined under section 17.1, is very wide. So it covers everything under employer-employee relationship. Next, foregone salary is also taxable. What is foregone salary? Salary is due because you have worked for this month. But let us say there is some dispute between you and employer over the amount of salary. The employer is paying you 80,000. You are saying, no, I am eligible for 1 lakh. He says, no, as per contract, it is 80,000. You said, no, as per this clause of the contract, it should be 1 lakh. So there is a dispute. Now you say, okay, you keep the salary with yourself. I'll see in the court. So for the time being, you are not accepting the salary. You are foregoing the salary. The law has nothing to do with this, because once you have earned the salary, we are anyways taxing income which is earned. Whether you take it or not, that is your choice. So even a foregone salary would be taxable. Second, surrender of salary. You have agreed to surrender some part of your salary to the central government for some specific purpose. Like many times we see when we have pandemic like what is currently going on, the government, the prime minister makes an appeal that I request you all to contribute something to the prime minister's care fund. Or otherwise, let us say when there is some other calamity happening, there are landslides like what it happened in Uttarakhand, there is cyclone. And for all this, the government creates a relief fund and it requests you all to contribute to that fund. So many times we ask our employers that, okay, whatever is my salary due for this particular month, maybe either the whole salary or 50% of salary, you transfer it to that fund. So what you have effectively done is you have earned 100%, but out of that 40, 50%, whatever you wanted, you have transferred it, or in the language of the law, you have surrendered it to the central government. Generally, this is what happens. Like you would have seen for this pandemic, many of the ministers or many of the bureaucrats, they surrendered 1 month's salary. Some surrendered their 3 months salary. So when you surrender your salary, the law says we will give you a benefit because you are surrendering the salary for some noble cause. So only this particular item here also you are not receiving the salary, but here you are getting a benefit that they won't tax you. However, if you are foregoing it because of some dispute, it will still be included in your income and you have to pay tax. Fine. Now, the first section of the salary head is section 15, which is as what we have discussed, the charging section, what it says. Now, this is what the section is, but let us simplify it. So let us understand the whole section in simple words. The first most important point, as I have discussed, as per this section, what is taxable under the head is anything, any income arising on account of employer-employee relationship. Second, it is taxable on either due basis or receipt basis, whatever happens first. Now, this is interesting. Generally, incomes are taxable either on due basis or on receipt basis, one of the methods. Salary head says we will tax it either on due basis or on receipt basis, whatever happens first. Now, generally due happens first. So that is why even in the previous slide, we discussed that even if you are foregoing the salary, you have to pay it. Why? Because the salary has become due, but you have not received. But we have nothing to do with that. Even if due has happened, you have to pay tax. So what does the point says? Whatever, whether due or receipt, whatever happens, you have to pay tax. I hope this is clear. Next. Now on the same logic, if let us say you receive salary first. Now generally when you receive salary first without working for that particular month, so it becomes advance salary. Again, following this rule, that is whether due or receipt, whatever happens first, you have to pay tax. That is why advance salary will become taxable in the year in which you have received it. Following the second point, that we tax it on due basis or receipt basis, whatever has happened. So even though the due hasn't happened because you are yet to work for that month, but you have taken the salary in advance, we are going to tax it on advance basis. However, advance against salary is not taxable. Now you have to first understand what is advance salary and what is advance against salary. Advance against salary means you have taken loan against salary. Loan is not income. So if you are taking loan against salary, nothing is taxable. But if you are taking the whole salary in advance, it will be taxable because of point number 2. Tax-free salary. Now this is again an interesting point. Many times the employer says that if you are working with me, my package is, let us say, rupees 20 lakhs, but you are not required to pay the income tax what is there on 20 lakhs. Means I will be giving you 20 lakhs and whatever is the income tax applicable on this, that you need not pay, because that what I will be bearing on my side. So for you, you will say that, okay, my salary is tax free. Why your salary is tax free? Because according to you, the entire 20 lakhs you receive and whatever is the tax applicable on 20 lakhs, that will be taken care of by the employer. Now here the law says, wait, let us say for simplicity, I'm taking a figure that the tax applicable on your 20 lakh salary comes to rupees 5 lakhs, for example. Now, the point is that in your hands, the total benefit that you are receiving from the employer is 25 lakhs. 20 lakhs, which is the salary which he has paid to you, and 5 lakhs, which is the tax which the employer is paying on your behalf. So even whatever we discuss this, perquisites means this same thing. Whatever the employer is paying on your behalf, it is like a facility given by the employer to you. So it is a benefit to you. That is why this amount will also be added, and then finally you will come to know what is your salary. So it will be 25 lakhs. Now, interestingly, 20 lakhs, the tax is paid by the employer, which is 5 lakhs. Now, the law says, in our eyes, your salary is 25 lakhs. So you are still yet to pay tax on the excess 5 lakhs. Arrears of salary. Now, if you remember, similar point we discussed for house property as well. Arrears means what? Something which is pertaining to earlier years, but because of some dispute pending, you did not receive it then. And since you did not receive it, you did not even know whether you will receive it or not. So you did not even tax it in that year. So now you are receiving it. That is what is arrears. So arrears pertains to some earlier year, which wasn't taxable then. Now, what does the law says? Arrears of salary, even arrears of HP, they are taxable in the year in which it is received. I'll give you an excellent example of arrears. Generally, this happens in case of government employees. Government employees are paid as per a fixed pay scale, and this pay scale is always revamped, revised by the government. How does the government revamps or revises the pay scale? It appoints a committee. We call it as the 5th pay commission, 6th pay commission, 7th pay commission, 8th pay commission. So it is the committee which studies the entire work profile, which studies the inflation rates and what should be a proper remuneration for this particular grade of work. And then it gives a suggestion to the government that, okay, for this particular level of employee, this much should be the pay scale. Now, generally what happens, this committee, let us say now they have to decide for the year 2021. But by the time they submit the report and it is passed or it is accepted by the government, we are in the year 23-24. So 2 or 3 years have elapsed by the time the government receives the recommendation and it is actually implemented. Now, when in the year 23-24, government is paying you the difference, because right now in 2021, 21, 22, and 22, 23, government has paid you as per the original scale, but the scale has been hiked by the pay commission recommendation. So government will pay you the difference for these past 3 years, 4 years. Now this difference which you'll receive directly in 24, 25, that will be termed as your arrears of salary. It will be taxable in the year in which it is received, and it would be taxable as income under the head salary only. Bonus is taxable in the year in which it is received. Salary is received by members of parliament or members of legislative assembly. The answer is that whatever salary they receive, it is not taxable under the head salaries. It is taxable under the head other sources. If you remember the list of incomes covered under other sources, you will find this over there. Why it is covered over there? For the same reason. What is our golden rule for salary? Anything which is received under employer-employee relationship is only salary. Now, members of parliament, they are not serving as employees. They are serving as representatives of public. So whatever salary, let us say we can call it as salary, but as I said earlier, terminology is not important. So whatever salary they are receiving, but they are not receiving as employees. They are not standing in the relation as employees. That is why whatever they are receiving is not taxable to them under the head salaries. It is taxed as other sources income. Similarly, partners are also paid salary. Many times in accounts, if you have done partnership account sums, or if you are handling in real life cases, the firm pays salary, the firm pays remuneration to partners. Now, even though you are using the term as salary to partners, still in the hands of partner, it will not be a salary income. Same reason, partner is not standing in the relationship of an employee with respect to the firm. Partner is the owner of the firm. So in the hands of the partner, the salary received or the remuneration received from the firm would be taxed under his business head and not salary head. Similarly, company director is not a servant. So when you are paying sitting fees to the director, when you are paying remuneration to the director, whatever he receives is not salary income. Yes, there is a possibility that he is a full-time director and he is serving in the capacity as employee as well. In this particular case, whatever remuneration you are paying to him in the capacity as employee will be taxed here, and whatever sitting fees you are paying to him as a director, it will still be taxed as other sources, because directors are similar to MPs and MLAs. They are also representatives of the shareholders. So they stand in the same capacities as MPs and MLAs, and whatever both of these get as MP, MLA or as director is taxed in their hands under the head other sources and not salary. Any questions with any of these important points relating to the charging section? No?
No, sir. Thank you.
Perfect. Now we go to the details of the format. So if you remember the format, I had covered 5 heads or 5 types of salary. One is the basic, then allowances, then perquisites, retirement benefits, funds. Now we are going to go to each of these components in detail and check what is taxable and if there are any special calculations. So we start with the first main component of your salary, that is the basic pay. It is called as basic salary, basic pay, or you can even simply call it as salary. So this is the amount which you receive for the work that you are doing. It is the remuneration for the work for which you are employed. Now, in relation to basic salary, there is an interesting point called as the grade system. Now, in all big companies and also in all government organization, we do not sit with our employer at the end of every year to decide what would be our pay hike of the next year. There is no such negotiations happening every year. What happens is when you join under a grade. Like generally in case of government, you would have heard this is grade 1 or class 1 officer, this is class 2 officer. Now, what is that grade? That grade is that a particular grade is linked with a particular salary. So if you are falling in grade 1 or you are a class 1 officer, then you are fitting in this particular salary grade. Now something the grade appears like this for the basic salary component. So let us say you join the salary in this grade and the grade is given like this. What it means that when you join in the first year, your salary would be 25,000 per month. And every year there will be a hike of 2,000. So in the second year, your salary will be 27,000 per month. In the third year, it will be rupees 29,000 per month. Now, when you reach this 29,000, henceforth, your salary will be increased by rupees 3,000 per month. So you are earning 29,000 per month in the third year. In the fourth year, it will be 32,000. In the fifth year, 35. In the sixth year, 38. Now, once you reach 38, now the salary increment will be 4,000. So in the next year, your salary would be 42,000. Then in the next year, 46,000. And in the next year, it will be 50,000 and so on. So this is what is called as the grade system. So for deciding your basic salary, you are put in a particular grade. And what will be your salary in the second year, fifth year, 10th year, you know at the start of your employment, because that is what is specified in the employment contract in the form of a grade system like this. Now we go to the second category, allowances. As I discussed, what are allowances? Allowances means a fixed amount of money which the employer pays to you for meeting certain expenses. Now relating to allowances, what we have to study is the exemptions. Because if you remember the format, what is included in your salary income is the taxable portion. How to derive this taxable portion? For this, we have exemptions. So you take the allowance which is paid by the employer minus the exemptions which we are studying over here. The balance is your taxable portion of allowance, which is the balance is your taxable portion of allowance, which is included in your salary. So basically what we are doing is we are computing the taxable portion of allowance, and how that would be computed? That would be computed by finding or knowing the exemptions. So what are the exemptions? I have categorized the exemptions under three categories. Exemptions for special allowances where some part is exempt and remaining part is taxable. Then for certain allowances, it is fully taxable, right? Now, and then for certain allowances. Now I start from this category, official allowances. If employer pays you an allowance for meeting any expenses relating to office, relating to employment, the allowance is called as official allowance. Examples of official allowances are project allowance, daily allowance, travel or transfer allowance, conveyance, helper, etc. Now, these are those allowances. By the name, you'll understand. Let us say for simplicity, uniform. Now, in particular business, there is a uniform code that you have to dress up. There is a dress code that you have to compulsorily dress up in this manner. And to maintain that dressing, they pay you rupees 2,000 per month as uniform allowance. Now, since this particular allowance is given to you to meet your expenses relating to your official work, it is called as official allowance. Now we are studying what is the exemption, because after deducting the exemption, whatever balance is left will be the taxable portion which will be included in salary. The exemption as per section 1014 clause 1 read with rule 2BB sub rule 1 is the actual expenditure. So you have received allowance of rupees 2,000 per month and your actual expenses on maintaining the uniform is, let us say, rupees 1,500 per month. So whatever is the actual expenditure, that becomes the exemption. So out of 2,000, 1,500 is exemption. So 500 per month is the taxable portion which is included in your salary. Then there are some allowances which are partly exempt. Why partly exempt? Here, whatever was the expenditure, the entire expenditure was exempt. Here, exemption is up to the amount specified over here. So you can see for children education, the amount of exemption which is specified is rupees 100 per month per child up to 2 children. For children hostel allowance, it is 300. For transport allowance, it is 3,200 per month. But remember, this transport allowance is for covering the distance between office to residence. And this exemption is applicable only in case of blind or orthopedically handicapped employees. So if you are not suffering from any of these challenges, then whatever transport or traveling allowances you are receiving, it is fully taxable. There is no exemption. Tribal area allowance 200. Transport sector employees are getting a special exemption, which is up to 10,000 per month or 70% of the allowance. So these are limits we need not learn except the first two. First two are the most common ones. So you may remember this for your exams. Baki practically when you are practicing, you can sit with the act. So no need to learn for practical purposes, but yes, you have to qualify the paper also for the certification. So for that, I will suggest that you remember the first two allowances. Next, these allowances are the one which has no exemption, either full or part. So they are fully taxable. These allowances are city compensatory, tiffin, medical, servant, entertainment. However, we have studied for government employees, there is a deduction, but otherwise for others, entertainment is fully taxable, and any other allowance which is not specifically covered in this list. So all allowances which you receive other than the list and other than official, all are fully taxable allowances. Any doubts or questions?
Sir, is medical allowance also not taxable up to 15,000 per annum for government employees?
No, ma'am, there is no such thing. I will say there was an exemption, not is, there was an exemption up to the last year that whatever medical reimbursement you were receiving, whether government or private employee, medical reimbursement. What is medical reimbursement? Employer was paying your medical expenses. So let us say you produce medical bills to the employer that, okay, during this month I have spent this much amount for my treatment or the treatment of my family. Then the employer, if his terms provided so, was reimbursing to you the medical expenses. And if he is reimbursing to you the medical expenses, then up to 15,000 you are allowed benefit, that is exemption. But that exemption has been withdrawn. So presently there is no exemption to anyone relating to medical allowance or medical reimbursement.
Okay, sir.
Am I clear?
But
But
actually,
yes, yeah.
actually, as far as I'm concerned, we are getting quarterly medical allowance. That is a
Correct.
fixed sum,
Correct.
about
Perfect.
15,000 per quarter. So I guess 15,000 out of that per annum is not taxable. That
It
is the
was,
exemption
ma'am.
being received.
It was,
No,
ma'am.
but you are saying that it has to be medical reimbursement,
Exactly,
right?
ma'am.
But that is
Yes.
not reimbursement in that case. No, it is allowance we are getting
I'll
quarterly.
tell you, ma'am, what is happening. See, now when we come to salary, now we'll get many practical issues.
Right.
If you go to the act of 2 years back, that is, if I'm specific, let me be specific, it is 1819, because from 1920 this has been removed. 1819, if you read the law over there, you will find this exemption of 15,000 per annum, what you are saying. But I'm very clear about this. It was for reimbursement. Now, practically what happens? Employer is least bothered about how much you are actually spending. He cannot take the responsibility of reimbursing you the actual medical expenses because it can be too heavy for him in some cases. So what he does is he has a fixed medical allowance. So let us say what example you are giving, he is paying you 15,000 per quarter. So annually it is 60,000. But in order that you get the exemption, we ask the employer that you show it as medical reimbursement in the salary sheet, and you produce to him your medical bills of that much amount. Now, this is the practice which people are following. See, there are so many similar practices, like even relating to HRA, and there are other things that to get the benefit of whatever is given in the law, people are resorting to such practices. So what used to happen in the salary sheet, they used to request the employer to mention it as medical reimbursement. And in order that tomorrow nobody is having a problem, the employee used to submit the medical bills to the employer so that it could be proved that the employer has given you reimbursement, even though in actual sense, it was a medical allowance. Only then, if you are showing it as medical reimbursement, only then as per law, you are eligible for or you were eligible for the benefit. Now here I would like to also mention one thing, ma'am. See what happens many times. Now this is what practice many people started following to get the benefit. But many times, maybe because of ignorance of law, or maybe because they are not bothered in going into so much of technicalities and maintaining so much documents, as a practice or as a habit, people even take those exemptions which are not applicable to them. I'll give you an excellent example. This is what people are doing today also, which is wrong. Your child or your client's child is going for some coaching classes. And let us say the fees of the coaching classes is rupees 40,000. So what many times I have seen employees doing is they ask the coaching institute to issue them the receipt of the fees paid, which the coaching institute